U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is reportedly rejecting any possibility of a deal on the auto sector. Lutnick says there will be no free trade deal without tariffs.
Another warning has come from Washington, this time from Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. He made it clear that when it comes to economic priorities, the United States puts its own auto industry first. Everything else, including Canada's interests, comes second. In a striking comment, Lutnick even hinted that American automakers should consider moving their production lines further south. Such a shift would have major consequences for the entire North American auto industry, a sector that has linked Canada and the US for decades. Speaking at a conference in Toronto, Lutnick reportedly told attendees behind closed doors that when it comes to the auto sector, it's America first, Canada second. Ontario Premier Doug Ford was there and heard the whole speech. He said the message from Washington was loud and clear. The US wants Canadian car assembly operations moved south. Ford didn't mince words, calling it a serious threat. When the Secretary of Commerce says something like that, he said, "You can be sure it's with the President's blessing. We need to be ready." While the US is turning up the pressure, something very different is unfolding quietly in Ottawa. China's ambassador to Canada has unexpectedly extended an offer that could reshape the country's economic future. He announced that Beijing is willing to remove all tariffs on Canadian canola, but only if Canada drops its own tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. Two messages, two strategies. One uses pressure, the other offers incentives, but both are aimed squarely at Canada. Now, Ottawa stands at a crossroads. Should it follow Washington's lead or act in its own national interest? Make no mistake, Howard Lutnick's statements were deliberate. Under Trump, Canada is no longer seen as a partner, but as a competitor. Lutnick made it clear, the US plans to reclaim control over its manufacturing sector, even if that means unraveling a supply chain that has tied Canada and the US together for generations. Premier Ford is right to call this a serious threat. When a senior figure in the Trump administration talks about relocating production, that's no longer just diplomatic posturing, it's economic warfare. The message is crystal clear. The US will take back what it believes is rightfully its own, even if that harms Canadian industries. So why is Canada still clinging to its tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles? This policy, closely modeled after Washington's, is causing more harm than good. It's hurting Canadian farmers, consumers, and businesses. As Tom Mulcair once said, "This problem wasn't Canada's to begin with. We simply copied it, not out of sound judgment, but out of political loyalty." Now China is saying it will remove agricultural tariffs. If Canada lifts its tariffs on EVs, how should Canada respond? Favorably. It's an offer that could strengthen our hand in ongoing negotiations with the US. Meanwhile, as Lutnick talks about undermining Canada's auto sector and trying to force Canadians to buy American vehicles, we're left wondering, what kind of negotiation tactic is this? Last fall, before Trump's re-election, Canada aligned itself with the US by imposing a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. The reasoning? There really wasn't any, except that the US was worried about competition from affordable, high-quality Chinese cars. So Canada followed their lead. And what did we get in return? Nothing. Instead, we were attacked. We were treated like a subordinate state. The US began targeting our auto industry and other economic pillars. And of course, China responded. After we adopted Washington's tariff, Beijing imposed its own restrictions, hitting Canadian agriculture hard, especially canola. That market was worth billions to prairie farmers. Now, those farmers need government subsidies, which cost taxpayers more. That one decision, aligning blindly with Washington, has come with real consequences. While Ottawa may have thought it was showing strength by standing with the US, all we got was retaliation from China and betrayal from our closest trading partner. Tom Mulcair was right. The US always puts its own interests first. And every time Canada copies Washington's policies to stay in their good graces, it's Canadians who pay the price. We were promised a partnership of equals. What we got instead is deepening dependence. And now, with Trump's Commerce Secretary openly threatening to pull the auto industry out of Canada, we're facing a sobering reality. The idea of cooperation has become nothing more than an illusion. This is a turning point. The US is using threats. China is using offers. Canada has to decide. Will it continue to follow Washington blindly, or finally make a decision in its own best interest? Joining me now is China's ambassador to Canada, Wang Di. Ambassador, thank you for coming back to our studio. Ambassador Wang Di, thank you for having me. Let's get right to it. The key issue right now between Canada and China is tariffs on electric vehicles, canola, and other agricultural products. So let me ask you plainly, are China's tariffs on Canadian agriculture directly linked to Canada's EV tariffs? Ambassador Wang Di, that's a very important question. Yes, China's tariffs on Canadian agricultural products are a countermeasure, retaliation, essentially, against Canada's EV tariffs, as well as the unilateral and, in our view, unjustified tariffs Canada has placed on Chinese steel and aluminum. I have said this many times. If Canada is prepared to reconsider and correct these practices, China will also respond positively. Can I ask you something directly? If Canada removes its tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, will China lift its tariffs on Canadian agricultural products? The answer from China's ambassador was clear and unambiguous. Yes. If Canada drops what he called unilateral and unjustified tariffs on Chinese goods, including electric vehicles, then China will reciprocate by removing its tariffs on key Canadian exports like canola. This isn't just diplomatic talk. It's a real economic offer. A chance to reopen a multi-billion-dollar market for Canadian farmers, especially in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. At the same time, it gives Canadian consumers access to affordable, modern electric vehicles that are shaping the future of transportation around the world. This isn't about choosing China over the United States. The real question is, when will Canada start choosing itself? For years, Ottawa has followed Washington's lead in trade decisions, aligning with US policies that serve American interests, often at Canada's expense. But Beijing's proposal presents a strategic opportunity. If used wisely, it could help Canada revive its agricultural exports, strengthen its EV sector, and grow trade partnerships without giving up an inch of our sovereignty. Imagine another path forward. Instead of mirroring US tariffs, Canada could invite EV manufacturers to invest right here, bringing factories to Windsor, Oshawa, or Quebec. These companies could build with Canadian steel, hire Canadian workers, and use Canadian technology. That's real economic independence, keeping jobs at home and drawing investment in, rather than pushing it away with high tariffs and short-sighted trade barriers. The global race toward electric vehicles is accelerating. Canada has two choices: join that race or sit on the sidelines while others take the lead. Removing these tariffs wouldn't be a sign of weakness. It would be a smart, strategic decision, one that reclaims Canada's right to set its own course. Because when Canada writes the rules, no one can write us off. But there's a deeper question here. Beyond just trade, it's a question of national identity. Are we a country that waits for signals from Washington before making a move? Or are we a country that charts its own path based on what's best for Canadians? Trump's Commerce Secretary has already shown his hand. The US will always put its interests first, and they'll do it even if Canadian industries are left behind. Meanwhile, China's ambassador has made it clear Beijing is willing to negotiate. Now the next move is Canada's. It's time to stop being stuck between two global powers and start forging our own way. Because the only way to protect the Canadian economy is to lead it, with confidence, clarity, and courage. And if you've made it this far, here's something to really think about. For the first time in decades, Canada may have a genuine opportunity to redefine its place in the global economy. Not as a follower, but as a leader driven by reason, innovation, and self-respect. So, what do you think? Should Canada keep copying Washington's trade policies, or is it time to start setting our own? Let us know in the comments below. Please subscribe to the Timefold channel and don't forget to hit the like button.